Talks aimed at advancing the next phase of negotiations between Israel and Hamas are again under international scrutiny as Qatar signals renewed momentum in its mediation efforts. In Doha, the spokesperson for Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Majed al-Ansari, said the country believes both sides could be pushed toward the next stage of discussions in the near term. His comments come at a moment when the hostage exchange framework remains sensitive, with mediators balancing complex logistical constraints in Gaza and shifting political pressures on all sides. Qatar, together with Egypt and the United States, has played a central role in brokering the multi-stage process that includes pauses in fighting, the release of hostages held in Gaza, and coordinated humanitarian arrangements. Officials in Doha have repeatedly acknowledged that progress requires navigating extremely difficult operational conditions on the ground, including damaged infrastructure, restricted movement, and ongoing security risks. In his latest public remarks, Majed al-Ansari described the talks as having reached an important milestone. Referencing the current stage of the agreement, he said that reaching the point of returning nearly all of the individuals required in this phase had been unexpectedly challenging. In his words, "It's a miracle that we have gotten to this point." He added that only one remaining body was still expected to be transferred as part of the initial commitments, emphasizing that the circumstances in Gaza had complicated the process from the start. The spokesman noted that Qatar had consistently warned that the logistical environment in Gaza could impede implementation. Unreliable access routes, damaged communication systems, and limited humanitarian space have all contributed to difficulties. Still, al-Ansari stressed that the completion of this step should not delay movement toward the second stage of negotiations. As he said, "As we have always said, the logistical situation in Gaza would certainly make it difficult to reach this result, but we have reached this result right now." International mediators have indicated that the transition to the next phase involves more complex political bargaining. Stage 2 discussions include additional hostage releases, terms of potential extended pauses, and coordinated humanitarian access. Qatar has publicly urged all sides to stay focused on the negotiated framework rather than conditions set outside the agreed process. In the same statement, al-Ansari reiterated that logistical concerns should not serve as an obstacle to advancing talks. This should never have been, a hamper in front of moving to stage 2, he said, calling on both Israel and Hamas to maintain engagement with the mediators. He added that Qatari officials were working intensively alongside other international partners to keep the process moving. The spokesman emphasized that Qatar continues to communicate with both parties in real time, seeking to secure the commitments required to open the next stage. He said Doha believes conditions are in place to move forward soon, noting, "We think that we are working very closely, of course, and we think that we should be pushing the parties to stage 2 very, very soon." The talks are taking place under significant public and military pressure. Israeli authorities continue to insist that the return of hostages remains their priority, while simultaneously signaling that operational timelines inside Gaza remain tight. Hamas, for its part, has linked further releases to guarantees regarding humanitarian access, security arrangements, and demands related to the broader conduct of Israeli military operations. Diplomatic sources familiar with the negotiations say movement between phases often requires not only agreement on terms, but also real-time verification of conditions on the ground. That includes confirming the status of hostages, arranging secure transfer routes, ensuring coordination with international humanitarian organizations, and verifying that each side is meeting its obligations before the next exchange or pause begins. Qatar's role has been shaped in part by its long-standing communication channels with Hamas and its parallel security and diplomatic cooperation frameworks with Western states. These relationships have allowed Doha to act as an intermediary at moments when direct communication between the parties is not possible. Qatari officials have also been in close contact with partners in Washington who view the multi-step process as central to stabilizing conditions and preventing further escalation. The conclusion of the first stage represents one of the rare points of tangible progress since the conflict escalated, yet mediators acknowledge that subsequent phases will likely be slower and more complex. Stage 2 involves a broader set of political and security considerations, including arrangements for international oversight, sequencing of additional humanitarian deliveries, and commitments meant to prevent a collapse of the negotiated structure. Officials involved in the discussions say that maintaining momentum is essential to preventing setbacks. Any disruption in communication, delays in hostage verification, or disagreements over humanitarian corridors could complicate the transition. For that reason, Qatar and its partners continue to emphasize the need for steady engagement and disciplined adherence to the steps already agreed upon. In recent days, humanitarian organizations have warned that the situation inside Gaza remains precarious. Limited access to electricity, damaged water systems, and shortages of medical supplies are factors that negotiators consider when shaping humanitarian components of each stage. These conditions directly affect the feasibility of transfers, safe passage arrangements, and the establishment of temporary relief corridors. Qatar has publicly stated that it coordinates with agencies operating on the ground to understand these challenges and relay them to negotiators. The goal, according to officials familiar with the talks, is to ensure that each stage of the process is matched with realistic operational plans rather than assumptions. This approach has informed Qatar's messaging that the path towards Stage 2 requires political willingness reinforced by practical coordination. While al-Ansari did not provide a specific timeline, his repeated use of the phrase "very soon" reflects what officials describe as cautious optimism among mediators. That optimism is based on the near completion of the current phase and the sense that both sides recognize the risks of allowing the process to stall. However, officials also acknowledge that the environment remains highly volatile and the transition will require close monitoring. Efforts to sustain negotiations have been complicated by public statements from both Israeli and Hamas leaders. Domestic political pressures in Israel, including debates within the government over military strategy and the terms of any negotiated pause, add another layer of complexity. Hamas, meanwhile, continues to frame releases as part of a broader political struggle and often issues statements that challenge the conditions proposed by international mediators. Against this backdrop, Qatar's messaging focuses on bridging gaps and keeping both parties within the agreed negotiation structure. Al-Ansari's statement underscores that Doha sees the near completion of the first phase as proof that progress is possible despite the conditions on the ground. Officials in Qatar have reiterated that halting at this stage would jeopardize the fragile momentum that has taken weeks of coordination to establish. The next steps will require clear commitments from both sides. Mediators will need to verify the remaining body transfer, secure written confirmations for Stage 2, and coordinate operational details with humanitarian groups. The process also requires maintaining communication mechanisms to prevent misunderstandings, delays, or breakdowns in trust. Despite the challenges, Qatar's foreign ministry says it is prepared to continue its work as long as both sides remain engaged. Al-Ansari's remarks serve as a public signal that Doha expects renewed movement in the talks and sees no justification for delays once the remaining requirement of Stage 1 is completed. He emphasized that the focus must now shift to enabling the political and humanitarian components of the next stage. By presenting the near completion of the current phase as a milestone rather than an endpoint, Qatar aims to establish a sense of continuity and purpose in the negotiations. As mediators wait for final confirmations, the international community continues to monitor conditions in Gaza and assess the potential impact of further pauses or exchanges. Regional actors, including Egypt and other Gulf states, remain in close discussion with Qatar and Western partners to support the broader diplomatic framework. For now, Qatar's message is clear. The pathway to Stage 2 depends on disciplined engagement and a commitment to the structured process already in place. With the near completion of the current phase, mediators believe the conditions exist to move forward. As Al-Ansari put it, "We think that we should be pushing the parties to Stage 2 very, very soon." The situation remains fluid, with negotiations continuing through diplomatic channels. The process now hinges on completing the final requirement of the first stage and securing agreement from both sides to begin the next phase of talks. Talks remain active, and Qatar says it expects movement toward stage 2 once the final transfer is completed. With the final transfer pending and mediators maintaining constant contact with both sides, Qatar says the conditions are now in place to begin the next phase of negotiations. Officials in Doha emphasize that progress depends on sustained engagement and adherence to the agreed framework. For now, the talks remain active, and Qatar expects both parties to move towards stage 2 once the remaining requirement of the current phase is fulfilled.